Hello, I'm Shelly Horton. I'm a journalist and I'll be hosting this Patient Voice Initiative series. Now, everyone's talking about evidence-based advocacy and patient-based evidence, but you guys have already got more than enough to do running an advocacy group and support group. You know, you can nail an awareness campaign, run a fabulous fundraising event, and even hold your own talking to clinicians and researchers about clinical trials. But you don't know how and where to start with this robust research into patients' needs, their preferences, and their experiences. Well, this video is for groups who are interested in patient-based evidence and want to know where to begin. It covers different ways to approach it, pitfalls to watch out for, and how to make sure you're investing time and resources into good research that will benefit your members. I've asked our experts back to spell it all out for us. First up, we have Jessica Bean. Jess is living with cystic fibrosis. She is a patient advocate, international speaker, consultant, and empowerment coach for young women living with chronic illness.
Thank you so much, Shelly. What a pleasure to join you today.
Next up, it's Simone Laden. After the death of her sister to a rare cancer, Simone co-founded NeuroEndocrine Cancer Australia, which advocates for greater access to treatments as well as funding clinical trials and research.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We also have Dr. Simone Fifer, whose PhD research into patient preferences will help build health systems that better meet patients' needs.
Thanks for having me.
And we have Anne Single, the Chair of Health Technology Assessment International's Patient and Citizen Involvement Interest Group, which brings together more than 400 people internationally to push for practical patient involvement.
Hello.
Simone, I'm going to start with you. What are your tips for getting started?
The most important thing is, what are you really trying to achieve with your patients, and what is it, the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? So we do think that, and how do you engage and educate your patients as well on what the process is as well. So to get started, I think it's just talking to as many stakeholders as possible to ensure that you're all on the same page and you understand what your goals are, and to start talking to patients and start asking their stories.
I think the most important tip for people getting started is to look at what's been done. There's probably a lot of other researchers who've done work in this space and also advocacy groups. So I'd actually look at what's been done locally within Australia, but also look overseas and see what has been done to learn from that. And then you can adapt and use that and then take that for your own research that you're doing here.
I think my biggest tip is don't get started till you've got a really good picture of what you want to do in this space, because once you move into patient-based evidence, patient groups know it's going to take work and your time is really, really important. You're there to support people with a particular condition in your community and you want to know that this is really going to pay dividends for you. So don't start till you have that clear picture, and I'd suggest you get that clear picture by talking to other patient groups who are getting involved in patient-based evidence research, and also talking to the policy makers, the people who are going to be the recipients of some of this research, and talking to them about what sort of questions you could be answering, and talking to your members, talking to them about their unmet needs, about what they want to see happen in this research as well.
The most important thing is that a group really understands their community, that they do the work, that they do the research, that they're in touch with the community, and also that they understand what the treatment is and what the new treatment might be able to do for the community. Having a look at that, communicating with all the other stakeholders in that process is really important.
What are some of the common pitfalls patient groups experience when getting started in research?
One of the most common pitfalls is trying to overcomplicate things. And I think the most important thing is knowing that our true value as patient organisations is that we know the patients probably better than anybody else, and they share and trust us more than anybody else.
Probably one of the most important things is not having your research objectives really outlined clearly and not knowing that up front. So if you have that up front, you can certainly hone that in terms of focus on your own particular research. The other pitfall that I would say that people sometimes fall into is not asking the right questions. So having the research question up front is important. And then obviously, what questions are you going to ask to answer that research question, which follows on? So is it going to be a qualitative piece? Is it going to be a quantitative piece? They're all interlinked. And so research objective number 1, and then asking the right questions number 2, and they go hand in hand.
What do you need to support research? Is it money? Is it time? A clear question? All of the above?
Definitely, all of the above. I think it's skills, absolutely. So even just recently, our organisation has upskilled some of our staff in knowing about clinical research, and there's a lot of information out there available. So we don't, as patient organisations, need to reinvent the wheel. Connect with other patient organisations, connect with other groups like Health Technology Assessment International. They've got so many education programs. Eurotas has them, Nord has them. There's a lot available on the web to try and upskill and educate, and then apply for grants. Try and get some money and see what sort of programs you can try and research you can support. But once you've actually really tried to work out what your goal is as well.
And who can help with the research work?
There's a lot of different type of stakeholders who can help you outside of your own particular group. And I definitely recommend looking outside if you need assistance. Some of those particular stakeholders include industry partners, if you're looking for funding for some type of grant. University and academic researchers are often doing research in this space and have grants and resources that they can leverage. So there'll be 2 of the core areas I'd focus on first, and government as well. Sometimes government had grants to assist with research. So industry, academic researchers and partners, and then looking to government grants as well.
If you've got no money to pay a researcher, where do you start?
One of the things that we've been doing at Patient Voice Initiative is trying to link advocacy groups and researchers together. So we're actually putting together a list of researchers who are working in particular type of research and have worked with advocacy groups before. And we're going to put that online to make it easier for advocacy groups to connect, to make that starting point to know, okay, if I want to do a qualitative patient experience piece, but I don't have the knowledge and experience to do that, who could I start with? Who could I go to ask questions? And maybe there'll be a collaboration from that, or maybe that person could recommend someone else that you could work with. So that's going to be a really good starting point and something that the Patient Voice Initiative is working on.
It is a difficult thing, but there is a lot of students available. We also have a huge, incredible range of volunteers who help us, who have those skills. I think asking your patient group what skills are actually out there, but also we've been able to capitalise PhD students as well who have found an interest in neuroendocrine cancer, and we've been able to support them in just small ways. But time and access to information and to patients is a lot of what these PhD students are actually after. And so we've been able to connect them without actually having a huge investment in money. You don't need money. I think it's probably a lot more time. But yes, money definitely helps as well though.
So how do you know if the research you've commissioned or been asked to join is any good and it will actually benefit your members?
First thing I would look at, what are the outcomes? So what are the outcomes from the research? Do they align with what your group stands for? And will your members get benefit from that? I think that's the main thing is, what's the research attempting to do? Will it change things? So do the members get a benefit from that? Then I would probably look down from that. If that's the tick box and it's a yes, then I'd look down to the quality of the research. So have the people that you're working with done this type of thing before? Do they have experience? They could show you case studies, they could show you papers to show that they have experience in doing this type of research, and did it have an impact? So if you are putting research into a submission, what's been done before with your collaborators, and did that have an impact? And you can try and map those things together to make sure that you are doing quality work, which is going to make a change and not just be put on a shelf and not do anything.
How can you make sure that your members are involved appropriately and that the research and their data and privacy is protected?
That's a really good question. So data and privacy are one of the number one things when doing research at the moment, or any time, but particularly at the moment, it's a focus. I would say that if it's a particularly sensitive issue, ethics is always a good area to focus on. I know sometimes advocacy groups don't have the ability but to get ethics because they're very time-intensive processes. But for example, working with other collaborators like universities or academic researchers who have that ability, is a good starting point because they can lead you in the right direction, because those submissions have protocols on data security and privacy inbuilt into them. So they have to answer those questions. The other component, even if you don't get ethics, would be to make sure you're adhering to all the local, in terms of a countrywide, privacy regulations. So things like the Australian Market Research Society, the government agencies that represent privacy, you can see online what the particular requirements are. And as an advocacy group, you need to make sure that you're meeting that in terms of, if you collect names, where are you storing them, what are you doing with them, is the research anonymous, etc. And that's all been explained to people up front. And obviously you have an informed consent, which is paramount in all of this type of research.
Again, the relationship that you have with your community is critical. Having a relationship where they trust you and know that you have their best interest at heart really helps to build their confidence that they can contribute something and that their information will be safe and held with respect. The other thing is, choose your providers wisely. I think it's the same with anything in this space, making sure you know who you're dealing with, that you have a relationship with them, and that they too are going to value, respect your patient community.
Now, we've talked a lot about what it takes to get patient-based evidence, but is there a risk in just not doing it at all?
There is definitely a risk in not doing it. If it's not done, those committees that we've been talking about who are making decisions on behalf of the country and behalf of patients and people living with these conditions don't have all the information they need to make their decision. They don't have information about the patient perspective and the patient voice. And so there's probably a lot of uncertainty and about what they would actually do in different decision contexts. So they need to have a patient piece of research in their decision-making context. So I think it's very, very important that we as advocacy groups and researchers come together to actually get this evidence and put it through to those committees. So then they have all the information, and then they have their other pieces of information that they collect. And at least then the patient perspective and the patient voice has been considered in that decision.
The last thing we want to happen is for reimbursement to turn back into a game of whoever shouts loudest gets the drug funded. We want it to be based on something that's fair, and evidence is a way that we can work towards that fairness.
I'm really glad that you asked this question, because this is what gets me up in the morning. This is why this work matters to me. I think the risk of not doing patient-based evidence, of not adding that other puzzle piece to that picture of impact a treatment might have, is that we finally get the treatments that patients and patient communities have waited their entire lives for in some cases. We finally have it, but then patients can't access it because somebody who doesn't live with or perhaps completely fully understand their condition has determined the value of that treatment. It's really important that everybody can appreciate the full picture of what these new therapies can do.
Well, I hope this has motivated you to get started. A big thank you to all of our experts. I'm Shelly Horton. Thanks for watching.